Okay. Well, welcome everyone. And this is our third session of our industry speakers series. I'm Kent Lovelace, professor of aviation here at UND and hosting today's session. Our guests today are from United Airlines, and we have several speakers, many of whom are alums of our program. They'll speak about the industry trends and some of their personal journeys through their careers, and of course, their new career pathway program for pilots, Aviate, that United is starting. We had planned for this, they had planned to come up in March to roll out some of this information. And of course, the COVID-19 forced us to take another approach. So we're very grateful that they've taken the time to provide themselves for this, this webinar. And the rules are basically there's going to be a few speakers, half a dozen or so, and then we're going to go to a Q&A. And everybody that's attending has a Q&A button at the bottom that they can type in their questions and answers, and the United folks will give you answers to that. So with that, I'd like to introduce Captain Beeb O'Neill from United Airlines. It's all yours, Beeb.
Wow, thank you, Kent and Beth, for inviting us. We're joined here tonight by some recruiters from our talent acquisition department, as well as several alum from University of North Dakota. I am not an alum, but I have a huge affinity for not only your school, your campus, and your academic programs, but I'm a big fan of the pilots that are United alum. They're well-trained, they're wonderful employees, and they're really, really good pilots. A little bit of my background is I graduated from the Air Force Academy with a degree in engineering and accumulated my flight training and experiences in active duty Air Force. I joined United in 1992 when there was a hiring surge across many of the airlines, and I had some choices back then. But I'll tell you what, I selected United because of the way they made me feel over our 3-day interview period. My husband chose another major airline, and we've had interesting conversations over the 30 years that we've been married and in the airline world. So airlines, we've seen some challenges of late, but they are essential to global economic growth. United Airlines employees, all airline employees, frankly, are considered essential. So we need to keep the airline moving and keep supplies and goods to where they need to be. Especially now we're doing a lot of cargo segments to provide medical equipment to locations that need it. So the airline industry is pivotal and essential to the global economy. Today, airline workers are providing much needed relief to communities that are truly in peril. We've had good times and we've had not so good times. Each time we've seen struggles and challenges. We have been followed by times of growth and opportunity. This is a little snapshot of over a 90-year history. We've had some challenges, but we've also seen some industry-leading changes. Combined in the 30s, formed United Airlines, created a position for flight attendants to join flight crews. 50s, growth, jets, safety margins improved. 60s, forward thinking, hired our first African-American pilot, was hired by Continental Airlines. Deregulation was a little bit of a challenge. It removed governmental oversights, but the marketplace got a little bit competitive, and there were some challenges between our airlines. We had some accidents and incidents, and United developed a precursor to the modern day CRM training for our pilots. The 80s saw some growth as well as some labor strife. The 90s, United introduced a fly-by-wire, Boeing 777. Global alliances were formed to increase our reach. The 2000s, many in the airlines call that a lost decade. It's really challenged with issue after issue. September 11th, resonates very closely, especially with our United employees. SARS, similar to COVID-19. Recession, bankruptcies, and furloughs. It made for a very challenging decade. However, the 2010s, we saw industry consolidation, United Continental merger, older aircraft, inefficient aircraft being retired, making room for the more fuel efficient 787 fleet type. And here we are, just a quarter out of 2020, and here has hit COVID-19 like nothing we've ever seen before. Unprecedented challenges to the global economy, the US economy, and the airline industry in particular. So what's next for the industry, and what's next for you? So I want to pose to you your opportunity. The airlines are going to need pilots. They're going to need you. You're well-trained. You are be well-experienced. The need for 10,000 pilots in the next decade is not going to diminish. We're going to continue to need pilots. And I'll show you why here with the next slides. This is what's out there for you. We have unprecedented retirements that don't start to tick down until 2031. If you look at the cumulative totals on the right side, you can see in 20 years, we're going to need almost 11,000 pilots. And that's just replacement pilots. That's not necessarily growth and expansion. That is to replace our pilots that are retiring across the industry. So you will have an opportunity. These are the hiring numbers. We want to be the airline of choice, not just for customers, but for employees. So we'll still need those pilots. We hired 899 pilots in 2019. We'll expect to project those numbers with moderate growth up to 1,600 pilots. So the opportunity for you is immense. You will have choices, you will have options. Your life at United, what can we offer you besides a great culture, a great employee experience, a great training experience? Our fleet type leads the industry. We have more wide bodies than any other carrier in North America. Wide bodies means opportunity. Whether you want to see the world or you want to stay domestically, the more number of wide body aircrafts is staffed at a different ratio. So it produces growth and opportunity for upgrades or to fly in the right seat of a wide body or left seat of a narrow body. Our bases, they're diverse, they're spread out. We have Guam in the Pacific. It creates a flexibility for you, for your family, for your region of choice, to where you want to live. And it's flexible. You can trade bases, you can take transfers. It's to make the commuting experience easy for you to be able to experience the fleet types or the region of the country that you and want to settle down or set up with your family. This breaks down the bases into specific fleet types and numbers of pilots. You can see our West Coast bases have a lot of pilots, and as well as Newark. The seniorities are different across our system, but inevitably our new hire pilots can get where they want to be within a year to 18 months. We do want to be the best. We want to be the airline of choice. Our flight training center is the largest in the world. We just finished a $150 million renovation, and we combined 2 training centers into one in Denver, Colorado. We boast almost 2,000 pilot instructors that conduct over 50,000 annual training events. We produce some really strong, capable, competent pilots. So why did I choose United many years ago? It was how they made me feel. And I feel very strongly still, it's how they make me feel. Our core four is our operating principles: safe, caring, dependable, and efficient. And it transcends all of our business decisions and all of our hiring decisions, and results in being an employee-centric, customer-focused, safety above and beyond all others. And it's what helps create a great community. We want a well-rounded employee. We want to be a well-rounded employer. We are socially responsible. We find ourselves in underserved communities and giving back. We're also committed to reducing our carbon sky print. We're investing in biofuels, and we've made the commitment to reduce carbon emissions 50% by 2050. Our goal is to be the airline of choice. We want to connect people and unite the world. We wish you all the best as you navigate this period of challenge and uncertainty and turbulence. We're here today with you in the hopes that you're here with us tomorrow. And thank you. I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker, a friend and colleague, Airbus First Officer J.D. Gommel.
Hey, good evening, everyone. And thanks for having us here to do this talk with you this evening. It's an exciting opportunity to be able to talk to everybody at UND, my alma mater. I'm going to run through a couple things about myself here real quick, and then we'll move on to the main thing I want to talk to you about, which is what to expect as a new hire at an airline. Now, first of all, before I get into that, I'm currently a Chicago A320 first officer, which you could see at the top up there. And remember that sequence, it's called our BES, base equipment and seat. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit further later on. But a quick rundown on myself. I'm a 2004 graduate from UND. I did a ASA flight operations internship in the fall of 2004. Moved on to be a flight instructor for about 10 months after that, and then quickly got hired again at ASA. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar, ASA later became ExpressJet Airlines, which it was merged, and that's what it's called now. In the middle of my tenure at ASA, I was offered the opportunity to fly for Air Mekong, which was a startup airline in Vietnam. That's where I took my first upgrade, and so I got to fly there for a little bit of time, got some great experience. And then in 2014, I was selected to join United, which was my dream job, and I'm so excited to be here. And I'm really excited to be able to talk to you guys about this and the opportunity that awaits you with our Aviate program. So let's just get on into it. Like I said, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what it is to be a new hire in an airline. I know when I was in college, it was kind of this scary, daunting thing, and maybe dispel some myths and rumors of what it's like. So first of all, what you're going to start out with is your basic indoc. That's going to be your congratulations and your welcome to the airline. It's a really neat time because you get to speak to a lot of the management that wants to come in and talk to you and welcome you to the company. The first thing you're going to do, or one of the first things you're going to do, is bid for your BES, and that's what we call it here at United, which is your base, equipment, and seat. And you see under bids that I put on there, that was actually taken from a new hire class, and this was not too long ago. I think this was the end of 2019. So those numbers you see are available slots: the base, the equipment, which is the 756, 320, or 737. And of course, you'll start out as a first officer. Now, keep in mind that when things are moving quickly, we have had new hires that were able to bid and be awarded the 777 while in new hire training. So things do move quickly from time to time. Also, during your time in basic indoc, you're going to sign up for your benefits. You're going to learn the flight operations manual, where to find information in there that will be used as you're out there on the line. So that's going to be similar to your safety policies and procedures there at UND. The neat thing about UND is preparing you for the airline style of doing things, because we are very standardized like you are at UND. And finally, I put on there relax, because it's a lot of information and you're going to have a lot more coming at you. But we want you to have fun with the process, enjoy it, and really make you feel welcome to your new company. So right after you get done with basic indoc, we're going to go into, actually, I forgot this part, the 8-ball ceremony. That's really exciting. This is a unique, united thing that only we do. So the 8-ball is actually the most junior guy at the company. So you see the guy there with his scarf on and holding the 8-ball. So that means you are the most junior guy at United Airlines. So when we have 13,000 and some odd pilots, that's kind of cool to be sitting at the most junior position looking up. And one of our later speakers actually was an 8-ball at one time. But this is totally pilot sponsored and just a really neat way for us to be able to welcome our new hires to the company. After the 8-ball ceremony, which is in your first week there, we're going to move on to your aircraft specific training. Now, as Beeb just said, we have the world's, or not the world's, the country's largest wide body fleet when it comes to legacy carriers. So I put a little bit of everything on there. You see the 787, the 777, my airplane right now, that beautiful Airbus right in the middle. And then you also have the 737 on the right-hand side, and then the 756 fleet. So our aircraft specific training is a 4-week course, which is designed to get you accustomed to and competent in the airplane before we send you out there onto your IOE out there on the line. So first week in your aircraft specific training is going to be your systems. And this is kind of daunting for a lot of people because transport category airplanes, they're complex, they're scary, but we have it down to a science. So you're going to work with what's called an FTI, a flight training instructor, and that is a specialist. They're not a line pilot, but they are a systems guru, if you will, on that specific airplane. And that's what they do, is they teach that type of airplane. So it's a combination of self-study time, and you're also going to be in the FTD, flight training device, or the simulator. And this is, we're going to start to kind of put together some flows, learn that kind of stuff. And at the end of the week, you're going to take what's called an SKV, which is a systems knowledge validation. It's a computer-based test, and it's designed to, even if you don't know the answer to the question, you can look it up and figure out where it is in the flight manual. So it's really based off of getting you to know where to find things, not necessarily knowing the exact source or know the source of every answer there. Moving on from that, you're going to work towards your procedures validation, which is the week 2. And that's where you're actually going to really begin to hone your skills when it comes to your flows in that airplane. And I know you guys are learning flows now. Trust me, those flows get to be a lot more later on when you're working in a transport category airplane. Also part of this is you learn to load the FMS, and then you'll do some real-time scenarios to prepare you for the simulator. So at the end of that, it's a procedures validation. Now think of all these, whenever I say validation, think of these as kind of like a stage check that you guys take. So the validation is just going to be your gateway to the next portion of your training. After your procedures training, you're going to move on to the simulator. This is your maneuvers week, and this is actually my favorite part of training. It's where you get to get in the simulator, put it on full motion, and learn how to fly the airplane. And the first sim really is just that. You do your first couple landings, and then it starts slow, and then it moves on to running through emergencies. So about the end of that week, you're starting to do V1 cuts. You're starting to do some other things in the air, where you're actually working with our QRH, which is a quick reference handbook, to learn how to run those different emergencies. The end of that week is your next validation, which is your maneuvers validation. Following that, we have our loft events. Now, this is your final week in training, and this is kind of taking everything that you've learned so far, putting it all together. You're going to run some real-time scenarios. So a lot of times when you get in the airplane, you're at the gate. The airplane is as if a crew handed it off to you, and you're moving on to a through flight or moving on to do another flight. Now, if you guys take the CRJ course there, which I actually took, I think I was one of the first classes to go through and do that course. That actually was the first experience I had with something along these lines, and it's a great experience. I highly recommend it, and you know, that's going to be a great idea of what training is going to be like. But this is going to be point A to B flying here in the loft scenario. It's going to end with your line-oriented event, which is your LOE, which is basically your type ride. So at the end of this week, you're going to have a PIC type rating in your airplane. So once you get done with that, you get a couple days off and you move on to what's called IOE, which is your initial operating experience. Now, the neat thing about IOE, first time flying the airplane, it's with passengers on board. You get an LCA, which is a line check airman, and you get to fly with that LCA for about 25 hours. And it might be a trip or two if you get a really long trip. Usually it's about 2, maybe 3 trips. And then that culminates with your final line check. And that line check is your release from training status to go fly the line. Now I put this picture over here, not only because it's an Airbus, because it's landing in a snowstorm. And I put that on there because when you go fly IOE, it's the real deal. You never know what kind of scenarios you're going to have, what kind of weather. It's real world flying. So it's really exciting, and it's really neat to finally be able to get out there on the line and fly trips with paying passengers on board. So throughout all this, as a new hire at United, you're what's called a half winger. And the half wing is really cool. It's unique to us, just like the 8-ball ceremony is. You're a first-year probationary pilot. And what we at United do is we all wear a ALPA pin on our tie, which I'll show you there. I have one here. And you wear that half wing on your tie, and that shows other pilots that you're new to the airline. And that gives us a chance to say, welcome to United. We're happy to have you here. And especially for your captains, it's a really good opportunity for them to mentor you and show you what it's like to be a United pilot. So really excited to talk to you guys. Thank you so much for having us here, and hope to see you in person up at UND sometime. And I'll pass it off to Mike Hamilton now.
Sorry, everybody. I'm sorry, a little user error there. My name is Mike Hamilton. I'm a 777 instructor. So I teach in the simulators that JD just talked about. In the simulators, it's always dark. The weather's always bad. Something's always on fire. But we do that to get you ready so that first day of IOE is as run-of-the-mill as a trip down to the supermarket. So a little bit about me. I graduated from Parks College back in the 90s. Instructed there for 2 years, flew for Air Midwest Airlines, which later got merged with Mesa, and then got hired at United in 1997, where I've been at United since then. I've flown just about every Boeing United's had, except for the 747. 727, 2 of the 3 seats, 756, 777, 737 captain. And the reason I flew a lot of those jets was because I was a pilot during the last decade. So a lot of those aircraft moves weren't really my choice, but as the airline got smaller and bigger, I got to bump and move with the flying. So I spent most of my life most of my career in Chicago, but I'm currently in Denver at the training center. What I'm going to talk to you a little bit about is ALPA. So I am a ALPA volunteer. I'm currently the executive administrator for the United pilot group, and I'm also the executive vice president at ALPA National for United. So what I do is I represent United at the national level. And a little bit of what we do at National is we try to live by our credo, schedule safety, and safety is our main focus. So we interact both on Capitol Hill and Parliament Hill in Canada, because we do represent Canada pilots, to make sure that the safety concerns for the association are forefront in the minds of the regulators and the legislators. And a prime example for that just recently is the CARES Act. So ALPA did a lot of work with the CARES Act to make sure that our pilots are taken care of through this crisis, that the airlines and the pilots have time to kind of get through this crisis and hopefully see a rebound in the economy so that we can get back to making money like we were just a few weeks ago. The other fights we fought, and these are fights that we're fighting for you, the prospective pilots, is we're fighting against flags of convenience and foreign ownership rules. So companies with oil fields in their backyards don't come in here and buy up all the airlines and change the industry for the worst. What we don't want to see is the airline industry looking like the cruise industry today. So some of the things you may have heard from the CARES Act was the fact that we have cruise industries, cruise ships that are all flagged in foreign bases because The work rules are better, or the labor rules are not as intense as the United States. And therefore all the work what the US marine industry used to do has been outsourced to other countries. So we're fighting that on a daily basis. One of the things that ALPA also does, we represent our pilots at the local level, and Jim Belton's coming up in a few speakers to kind of talk a little bit about that. But one of the things we also do is we interface all the time with airline management. So at United, we have a very good relationship with our management. We have very robust and strong safety systems like FOPA, for instance, and SMS, which you should be familiar with at UND. And all of our pilots that work for ALPA are all volunteers. So basically what you get to do is you find some kind of, you find some avenue or place where you have some interest, you volunteer your services for that. So whether it's safety or scheduling or retirement insurance or whatever it is that you have interest in, and you help your fellow pilots. So one of the things that we worked on at ALPA is the Aviate program. So the Aviate program has been a joint program with ALPA and management. We've made sure that from ALPA's perspective, we looked at what the industry provides through the different flow programs. We looked and saw, asked our members what they liked about the different flow programs throughout the industry, and we tried to incorporate the most popular features of all those programs into the new Aviate program. It's a great collaborative effort, and what our goal at ALPA was to provide a clear path for you as a college student, not just from the very first day as an Aviate candidate, not just through new hire that JD just talked about, but all the way through that water cannon salute when you retire at United in the 777 or Boeing 787. So that's our goal, because our goal as our interest as ALPA is we want the best, most professional pilots sitting next to us in the cockpit. That's what we're shooting for. And we're hoping that this program will attract those type of pilots. And so we will have the best and brightest at United. We're looking for you to have a clear path to United so that you have a successful 30+ year career. Now, understand the current events that are happening are going to create a challenge, but from every challenge is an opportunity. So what I would recommend to all of you is use this opportunity to better yourself both professionally and personally. Volunteer with different organizations at your college, for instance, the ACE Club. And the ACE Club is a good transition into ALPA, an introduction to ALPA. If you're an instructor, volunteer to become that check airman or try to get on with the hiring board. That's something I did when I was an instructor. And then when you get on at your regional, volunteer for ALPA. Those are great leadership positions, provides great experience, and allows you to grow both professionally and personally. And your goal should be to make the career better for the people that come behind you. That's been my goal since my first day at United. That's why I've done a lot of ALPA work. I happen to have someone at UND right now that's training to be a pilot, and I want the career to be better for him when he gets to where I am. So, so I just keep working, keep plugging. Realize this industry is cyclical; it will come out of it. Keep your eye on the long goal. And so next, I'm going to send it over to Ryan Goheen. He's going to talk to you a little bit about iPads. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. And good afternoon. I wanted to thank the University of North Dakota Aerospace team for hosting this series. And while I wish I could meet you all in person, what an opportunity for us to engage with something I'm passionate about, technology. My name is Ryan Goheen. I'm a 737 first officer based in Chicago, Illinois. I've also had the opportunity of working with United Flight Ops, specifically the electronic flight bag team, for over the last 2 years. And United truly has led the industry in the EFB space for almost a decade. And part of our theme is evolving industry. And I wanted to present the evolution of the EFB at United and give you a sneak peek at the next generation of technology, a software solution we call Electronic Flight Folder, and also share a piece of sage advice from a UND professor, really advice that has stuck with me over the years and is even more relevant today. So industry can drive a change in technology, or technology can change an industry. iOS devices have changed the landscape of aviation forever. Today, over 75% of the world's aviation operators use an iOS device for their flight deck. 70% of the world's operators provide a single device per crew member. In a rapidly growing area, iOS devices, 15% of operators are beginning to issue more than one device to their flight crews. And it's an exciting time and a fantastic product. When I first started my airline career, we had these, the pilot flight bag. You may know the story. On the outside, it was unique to each pilot. Stickers from around the world, maybe a 3-letter gold plaque. But the leather box had a density of a black hole. This was my flight bag, and it dangled on a super tattered handle. And I personally subjected it, my case, to years of gravity-defying torture on the back of a rollerboard. These flight bags, these were our mobile libraries, and they were filled with data. Specifically, all the facts, the figures, the references, the charts provided to accomplish any mission we were assigned to. And like a library, that data needed to be manually sorted and revised and sorted again and again. The EFB changed our pilots' lives and how we accessed data. Those paper library revisions became a relic of the past, and they were modernized to a simple tap of a button. Here's us embracing in our glamour shots. The black box became a fossil, and our pilots, they loved it. They rejoiced. We fully embraced the tech, and we glamorized how this device, and specifically the software, changed our worlds. In 2011, United's EFB program started off with a single app, a PDF reader, similar to the in-house solution that you guys have at UND. Even with a single app, the EFB was a game changer. And however, there was no real way to put the genie back in the bottle. When transformative technology is at your fingertips, questions tend to emerge like, what can we do next? What solutions are out there? What should we do? And what, more importantly, is the right thing to do? What are our blind spots and what if? How are we going to manage the challenges that come with change? So as our team started to evaluate what are the next steps, comments came coming rolling in. Have you seen this? You guys aren't doing enough. Do you see what Steve Jobs is doing right now? My buddy's cousin, he made this app. Check it out. How great would that be? So the team did what anyone would do. They gave our pilots what they wanted. Jeppesen FD Pro, you want it? Here it is, you got it. Weather data, it's on your device. Safety newsletters, electronic flight plans, cruise photos, layer of information, ability to add field de-icing, flight feed, turbulence, more apps. What we wanted to fly with, our EFB team put it on a 10.5-inch screen, accessible at a tap of a button. And the comments we get now are, will you stop putting apps on my device? It's too much stuff. And we know we're going to grow even more on this device because pilot situational awareness is fundamental to any operation. And these unintended consequences were destined to happen. Our blind spots, while each app solved one problem, they created a whole new problem. And we turned that solution, that data, that information, that feature function into this. And while I lived in Vietnam as well, these spaghetti monsters really, they tormented the cityscape everywhere. We were heading down the information highway without addressing the fact that we were adding lines at an exponential and eventually unsustainable rate. Reorganizing those lines was our team's challenge. However, as Mike had mentioned earlier, within every challenge is opportunity. And really, there's no such thing as information overload, only a failure of how that information is filtered. That's where our team began working on this new project called Electronic Flight Folder. Now, I'm very passionate about design, good and bad. And one of my favorite EFF goals was to create a user interface and a user experience around the pilot and really invoke that flight deck design. And so it got me thinking about my time at UND and interfaces, experiences that I had. As a student, nothing was more frightening to me than peeking into the cockpit and seeing this orange glow. I loathe this GPS, and in my opinion, the user interface was over-engineered. To me, it wasn't intuitive at all. Every time I got to fly in one of these aircraft, next slide, beautiful. I was delighted. I loved it. At the time, those Garmin 430s were high tech. The interface was super intuitive, it was delight to use. It made my instrument check ride a breeze. And now, today, this is your modern cockpit, and it's even better. And while each button, each knob, each feature was meticulously vetted, the black screen doesn't really add much to the picture. It's the software presentation that completes that situational awareness picture. So we set out to design the software solution. We looked at a lot of cockpit designs, and we wanted to design the app around a flight, and specifically its phases. Each successful flight has a departure and route and arrival. Drawn behind the scenes, a software company from Belgium called Aviate took our concept and completely ran with it, refining it down to this sketch. In app development, we call these sketches wireframes. When this early wireframe was shared around United flight operations, this one in particular, it spoke to me and a ton of other people about the incredible potential this concept could have at United Airlines. EFS interface is built around modern design principles, including a persistent dark background, the use of signaling colors when you need to gain that user's attention. Information like flight timeline, the flight number are available like really quickly at a glance. Added to the task list, or added to EFF, is a recommended task list. And this is designed to be as intuitive as possible as a checklist. When we put all these elements together, the pilot has an organized, at-a-glance view of their operational world, all housed, really, in one operational app. Next one. This wireframe depicts the inward phase of flight. As a pilot, you'll be able to see and edit your waypoints along the route, just like the FMC. And Aviate incorporates different modules, almost apps within the single app. One of my favorite ones is an app called Globe. In Aviate's Globe module, we've integrated a brand new technology that we've been flying around with for over a year. It's called SkyPath. And SkyPath uses a concept similar to Waze called crowdsourcing. SkyPath detects turbulence using the sensors within the iPad and sends that information to the ground host. That information is relayed back to other SkyPath users. And if your flight were to encounter or approach future turbulence, it would send you an alert within about 10 minutes, deviate around that turbulence. So by removing the obvious, which were to us, were standalone applications, we added a consolidated application that will be incredibly meaningful to our pilots. I know it's been absolutely exceptionally rewarding to work on a project like EFF. I know I would not have had this opportunity to do so without that sage advice I had mentioned earlier. That advice was from Professor Jim Higgins. A huge thank you if you're out there in WebEx land or Zoom land. His advice was to always, always, always look for opportunities to grow as a person first and as an industry professional next. And my challenge to each of you is to do the same. So in my time remaining, my quick 5 challenges for those building your skills today. Never stop learning. Challenge yourself, be creative, continue to learn something new, or increase your proficiency knowledge in a weak area. Second tip, think like a traveler, not a tourist. Many of you are pursuing a career in the travel industry, and travel changes you. Do everything you can to engage, absorb, and appreciate the differences in culture. Even if you don't get first class, enjoy the adventure. Tip number 3, build your support network. You probably heard this time and time again. You need a network, and Mike's going to talk about it here in a little bit. The good news is you've already started building that network. It then starts with you and your family, your friends, your fellow students, your professors, and your mentors. I would not be here talking to you all today if it wasn't for that support and the kindness of others. Tip number 4, prepare for challenges. Remember, always be ready to adjust the flight plan. It's not a failure if you don't reach your destination on time. Continue to look for opportunities financially, professionally, and personally. There are steps you can take to ensure you're successful in challenging times. And lastly, give back to your community as often as you can, and give back for the right reasons. Don't view volunteerism as a line on the resume. Volunteering should be a reflection of something you want to do, something you want to contribute to your community, be it the aviation community or otherwise. So, in summary, real quick, I've shared with you where we've been and where we're headed next, including our vision of what's coming to United, the electronic flight folder. I hope you found it insightful. Lastly, I challenge all of you to think differently and emphasize how to continue building your skills. We're all on this journey together, and you deserve to feel that we're with you every step of the way. If you go on YouTube, our Connection Matters series is a testament to what we can achieve when we put caring at the center of everything we do. And at United, we're connecting people, uniting world. I hope to connect with you all very soon, again or for the first time. Sincerely, thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Next up, Jim Belton, 756 Captain, MEC Media Spokesperson.
Thank you, Ryan. That was a fantastic presentation. I appreciate that. The one thing I found most enlightening is when you complained about the GPS. I was 16 years an airline pilot before I got a chance to use the GPS on board. So I had a clock and a map and an E6B. I am James Belton, and I attended FIT, Florida Tech, for my initial flight training. In 1989, coming off a charter job, I entered the airline world with American Eagle. And in the next couple of years, I actually went from one airline career to 3 careers total. I became a Air National Guard F-16 pilot. I stayed at American Eagle, and then I got hired by United Airlines. But at Eagle, I started a 3rd career that has been probably as equally rewarding as being a 757 captain and an F-16 pilot. And that was when I started my union work. I worked for the Allied pilots back then. And then when I got hired by United Airlines in 97, I flew a 727, then on to the 767, 757, 777, and now a 7576 captain. I continued to work with the union. And as Mike said before, we work locally and we work nationally. But one of the most rewarding things about being with ALPA, and we are the largest airline pilots union in the world, is what we do representationally with the 28 committees that we have. Those committees are comprised mostly of volunteers, and they handle every issue from air medical to contract negotiations to education and hotels, schedules, even drug and alcohol addiction. And what I'd like to talk about is a few of those committees and the great work they've done, especially how they've reacted to the COVID-19 crisis that affects our career. Firstly, we have an air medical committee, and that's made up of volunteers. And this committee, more than any, looks after the well-being of pilots. The COVID-19 virus is attacking pilots and making them sick. Air medical volunteers research CDC guidelines, and they inform the crews how to protect themselves. Pilots have been deemed essential, as Beeb said earlier, by the government. So We're right on the front lines and we're being exposed to this deadly virus on a daily basis. We fly first responders, medical staff, and supplies all over the world to and from the pandemic hotspots. We're flying 777s at United from Hong Kong back to LA with those supplies. Those are ALPA represented pilots on United airplanes. To date, we've had several hundred pilots be diagnosed with the COVID virus, and Air Medical does their level best to look after them. Hand in hand with that is our legislative committee. The ALPA Political Action Committee is the largest bipartisan labor PAC in the country. This committee works with members of our PAC to bring our concerns to the members of Congress. ALPA was instrumental in getting the FAA Reauthorization Act last year, and we continually lobby for the safety of the industry. One of the things we did recently is we mandated that there's a secondary barrier for cockpit doors. That arose after the tragedy of 9/11. In terms of the COVID crisis, the ALPA PAC was directly responsible for a call to action that resulted in over 160,000 letters to senators, congressmen, and women. Because of our efforts, a deeply divided Senate unanimously voted in the largest pro-labor aid legislation ever passed. We asked every member of Congress to support the airline workers in this devastating crisis. And the government came through, providing funds for salaries, and they prevented any worker from losing their job at least up until October if they take the grants. We even solicited future airline pilots from UND. I know a couple of from UND pilots. I'm paying tuition, or a little bit of tuition, for one of them that's up at UND. And from that point, we move on to the scheduling committee. Our scheduling committee did a great job in keeping the airline up to date in the changes after 9/11. That was a particularly challenging time, and I'm sure a lot of you students may have been one or two during maybe 3 years old during that time, so you don't remember it. 9/11, that caused the airline to close down, for the airline system to close down for about a week, maybe a little bit more. And our scheduling committee was able to keep our pilots apprised of the situation. Now, the COVID crisis has seen nearly a worldwide shutdown of airline traffic that can devastate pilots' lives. And this crisis is over a month old, and we're nowhere near the end, unfortunately. Our scheduling volunteers have provided guidance to crews, and they've allowed these crews to know where and when they need to be, and in order to keep them safe and well rested during their flying. The scheduling volunteers do an awesome job. They also help the airline out to make sure that our pilots are well rested at the hotel, and they know when their assignments are. Our hotel committee, working hand in hand with our scheduling committee, they ensure each pilot has a safe and clean hotel to get the adequate rest that is required for that crew to be effective. Now, you might think, well, geez, a hotel committee may just look at a hotel and say, hey, the Holiday Inn is great. But during this crisis, we've had a lot of properties that have been closed. We've had properties with COVID victims, and we've had a particularly hard time in making sure our crews get fed. The restaurants in and around the area during quarantines have been closed down, and that hotel committee has done a great job to keep our pilots well fed and well rested. All of this couldn't be possible if we didn't have a contract. United Airlines has entered into an agreement with the pilots represented by the Airline Pilots Association. Our contract is a 600-page document that spells out everything from our pay rates to our training to the uniforms we wear. This COVID crisis will test our contract, and some changes may have to be made to protect our career. Our negotiators are highly skilled pilots, pilot volunteers, who understand how to protect the pilots' livelihoods and keep us safe. And we appreciate that. Now, with everything going on that I've mentioned in the obvious crisis, I've only scratched the surface of the 28 committees and what they do. So lastly, I'd like to talk about a special committee that's near and dear to me, and that's our SOAR committee. SOAR stands for Support, Outreach, Assistance, and Resources. And that committee, they deal with the stress of the day. The stress of the day can be often too much for a pilot, and believe me, it is. I watched the events of 9/11 from the cockpit of a fighter, and I saw airplanes that I had flown be taken over by terrorists. So it's extremely stressful at times. And back then and earlier in my career, and my father was an airline pilot, some airline pilots with furloughs, terrorism, long hours, family separation, they saw that their marriages and their lives and their careers were ruined. And ALPA took it upon themselves to gather a group of volunteers who get special training, and they help pilots in need. See, we take care of our own, and we provide the counseling and assistance in ways we used to not even think of. If we can save a pilot from a grave or poor decision made during the time, the most stressful time in their life, then we are quite literally saving their life. And I truly appreciate that. Now, if you want to know more about ALPA work, join the campus ALPA ACE Club. ALPA ACE can show you what we do and can put you in touch with a mentor that was mentioned earlier who can help guide your career. My flying career has been truly fun and exciting, and I've seen the world, but my union work has been the most rewarding work that I've done. I'm a better person for volunteering, and I would like to think that the profession is better for my efforts. I appreciate your time. I hope you guys have a great time at UND, and that you have a career as rewarding as all the people that are talking today. If there's anything I can do to help and to make your career and your choices and your training better, please feel free to get a hold of me or contact ALPA, and we'll send a well-qualified mentor up there. We appreciate your time. My advice to you is to get involved and stay informed. Our next speaker is Michael Morgan. He's a first officer on the 737.
Well, thanks for that introduction. Again, my name is Michael Morgan. It's my pleasure to be here with you this evening, and thank you for having us and taking a little bit of time out of your evening to spend with us. I'm a 737 first officer here at United Airlines based in Chicago, and I've been with United Airlines just over 4 years now. A little bit about my history on my journey from the University of North Dakota to United Airlines. I am a 2010 University of North Dakota grad. And I started my journey to the United Airlines cockpit as a private pilot student, just like many of you, in 2006 at the university. I found that aviation and flying was really, really interesting for me. And so it didn't seem like work to me. I really liked it. In fact, it was the highlight of every day that I had at the university. And I really liked going out to the airport and getting my work done. I found that I progressed fairly quickly through the flight training. And when the opportunity presented itself after my junior year, I became a flight instructor at the university. And by the time I graduated, I had to become a multi-engine instructor and also a supervisor of flight. I spent about 7 months after graduating the university flight instructing and building flight time like many of you are doing right now. And I had the opportunity then to move to Atlantic Southeast Airlines, which is now ExpressJet Airlines, based in Atlanta, Georgia. In 2010, 2011, the industry was still recovering from the housing crisis and a slow economy. And similar to the pause that we're seeing in the industry right now, there were not a lot of jobs available, and there wasn't a lot of movement and advancement opportunities. I found myself feeling a little bit stuck at ASA, and I wanted an opportunity to expand myself professionally and personally. And so I started widening my gaze and looking elsewhere to see if there are other opportunities to build on my aviation career. And one of those opportunities came in the form of Air Mekong Airlines based in Vietnam. As you heard from JD earlier, he was also a pilot at Air Mekong Airlines. And it required you to move across the world and go live in another country for a year in order to fulfill that contract. But I was happy to do it and eager to try something new that put me outside of my comfort zone. After my year in Vietnam, I came back to ExpressJet Airlines to finish my 5-year career there. And in 2016, I was lucky enough to be hired with United Airlines as a first officer and have the opportunity to give back a little bit here. So the two things that I'd like to talk to you about today that are kind of close to my heart are leadership opportunities and also your social and professional network. Both of those things helped me get from the University of North Dakota to United Airlines in just about a 5-year period of time, which I think is pretty, I feel pretty fortunate, excuse me. The opportunities that the UNDAerospace specifically provides U.S. students in leadership are plentiful. Last time I checked on the UND website, there were over 260 student organizations that you can get involved in. There's something for quite literally everybody, and there's a place for you to join a group of people that are like-minded, and also for you to show leadership opportunities by becoming an officer and taking a more management position in those organizations. As you progress through your flight training, you'll have the opportunity to become a flight instructor at UND. And I highly recommend that you do that. The flight instructor position will open up more opportunities yet to become stage check instructors and management pilots. All of those opportunities are there for you to help build your leadership skills. And the reason that leadership skills are important for you is because no matter where you go, whether it's an airline, a corporate operation, or a 135 carrier, or some other flight operation, pilots are natural leaders in every role that they obtain. And so companies are looking for leaders, and they want to see evidence of that when you're applying for that position. And so your goal as a UND student should be to expose yourself to as many leadership opportunities as you can. The other thing that UND provides to you is a great alumni connection. And this is a great example of that alumni connection that UND has. UND students go out into the world, they build their careers, and then they come back to the university to pave the way for the next generation of aviators like yourselves. And so we're happy to do that for you. Other ways that you can show leadership or get involved are with national organizations. Some of you may be familiar with OBAP, Women in Aviation, National Gay Pilots Association, EAA, and many more. So constantly be challenging yourself to get out there and get involved with different communities, both in and outside of aviation. So let's talk a little bit about networking. Now more than ever, the network that you have is the most important thing in your life. The network that you have is a group of people that you surround yourself there that will be there to help you when times get tough like they are today. And they will be there to propel you through your career when times are great like they will be in the future. Every person that you come into contact with from now until you reach your dream job will become part of your professional or social network. And if you choose to continue to have a relationship with them, they will become a strong part of that network. You can expand your social network by participating in some of these leadership opportunities that I discussed earlier. And the reason that I want to talk about the networking opportunities is because it's a twofold relationship. First off, those networking opportunities, or the network that you have may present to you opportunities that you didn't know that you had. My personal example in that was when I was at my time at ASA. 2 or 3 years into my career, I was feeling like I didn't have the opportunity to upgrade. And so I was looking for other ways that I could show leadership at my airline. And a friend of mine who was a pilot at ASA was on his way out, and he said, "Mike, I think you'd be great for the ALPA hotel committee at our airline. I think you should apply. And if you're interested, I'd like to write you a letter of recommendation." That opportunity is something I'd never considered, but I was looking for a way to show leadership, and I took it. It turned out to be a great experience for me in volunteering for ALPA. And to be part of the hotel committee, you see some of these brand names on the screen. We stay at some great hotels at United Airlines. And the hotel committee is tasked with not only finding great hotels that are clean, quiet, and safe accommodations, but also that support one of the best parts of our careers, the fact that we get to travel and see the world. And what's the point of traveling to these great cities in our country and these great cities around the world if you're staying at an airport layover? And so it was a really, really great opportunity for me to show leadership and to become part of something bigger and to give back to the pilot group that I had not considered and that would not have been available to me had I not had a strong professional network. But the other side of networking is what you can do for others. When you maintain a large personal and professional network, you open yourself up for the opportunity to help someone who wants to be where you are, which is what we are all doing here today for you. Is we want to make sure that other people that want this great career have the opportunity just like we did. So this is a quote that I like, and I will leave you all with. "Opportunities are usually disguised as hard work, so most people don't recognize them," by Ann Landers. And so what I want to challenge each and every one of you today to do today is to not immediately take the path of least resistance. When you reach a fork in the road and you have option A, which is easy, and option B, which may require a little bit of effort, take option B and see where it leads you. The easy path will always be there, but the path of more resistance can sometimes lead you to something that you might not expect. So with that, I just want to thank you all for sharing a little bit of your evening with us. We are so happy to be here, and thank you, University of North Dakota, for putting this webinar on. I look forward to seeing all of you at our next in-campus event once this COVID-19 crisis is over. And next, I'll introduce the Manager of Aviate and Recruiting, Carrie Bucher. And it looks like Carrie might be muted.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, so I started my own career back in 1994 as a flight attendant, and enjoyed living the crew life very much. Enjoyed my flying career, hanging out in engines and with crews and taking care of customers. But one of the things that I love about our company so much is the opportunity that we have to get involved in other things and other areas of the business. So I decided I wanted to do something that would impact in flight, and I joined our training department. I spent several years in the training department, which allowed me opportunities to do things like go on delivery flights, which was a lot of fun, going up to Boeing and picking up our new airplanes, as well as partnering with our flight ops folks to go out and go to schools and talk to kids about careers in aviation. So just many different things. Over my 26-year career, I've had 14 different positions that have allowed me to just learn a whole lot about our business, from cabin systems and interiors to cabin safety and regulatory compliance. So I'm actually new in my role. I started a couple of months ago, but I'm really pleased to be able to talk to you a little bit about the Aviate program this evening. So with Aviate is our pilot development program for aspiring flight students and commercial pilots, and to provide a clear path to United. Our goal here is to attract outstanding people who are super excited to join United and the best team of United pilots in the industry. So when you join Aviate, you can expect to reach United sooner than non-Aviate applicants. You complete your United interview up front and join our ecosystem early on in your career. You can feel confident that you are on a clear path to United. And you'll also have access to continuous support and professional development. Basically, we're going to be with you every step of the way. So flight students and commercial pilots who wish to apply to Aviate have multiple entry points into the program. So each entry point has specific eligibility criteria and requirements that are determined by the candidate's experience level and current certifications. So let's look at some of these entry points here. We have our university entry point. We also have our professional flight training entry point. For those pilots who are building their time towards their ATP or restricted ATP, they are able to join Aviate through the partner universities, our partner flying schools, as well as our 135 operation partners. And then there is the entry point for those pilots who are already working for one of our regional partners. Those are the 4 ways through Aviate to join United, and outside of Aviate obviously is our traditional path. I like this quote by Drake. It says, "Sometimes it's the journey that teaches you a lot about your destination." So why Aviate? We are really committed to making sure that your experience through your journey is a good one by providing you with many opportunities for development and for coaching. We are working on a travel privilege program, and we hope to be announcing that sometime soon, but also to allow opportunities for you to interact with our leadership here at United. And I will tell you that we have fantastic leadership here. They're very engaging and just wonderful at taking care of the employees here, understanding that when you take care of your employees, they can take care of everything else. And it's really kind of the philosophy behind our leadership here. And then we have a large group of our professional pilots who are very, very passionate about being mentors to young pilots on their journey. So when I say that we're going to be with you every step of the way, you are going to be connected with a United pilot who is going to act as your coach, going to help guide you throughout your Aviate journey. So this coach is going to be able to provide career advice for you, to be able to answer any of your questions, as well as to help you understand, and I'll talk about these 3 focus areas here. When it comes to our culture, you know, we've got great airplanes and we have a great route network, but one of the most wonderful things about being at United is our culture. So your coaches will help you understand how Core 4 is applicable to all of us. It's not only the way we make decisions, but it's also how we interact and how we engage with our customers and with each other. They'll make sure that you're familiar with our leadership model and then also our diversity inclusion efforts. they'll make sure that you are familiar with key functional skills. So it's not a surprise to you what the expectations of a United pilot is. They'll introduce you to more ways to be effective with crew resource management, customer interactions, your flight hours, and etc. And then they'll help you understand the the United infrastructure, how we work together to connect people and unite the world, going through all the different departments here at United. So I know Beeb talked a little bit about the things at United, but I want to try to sell United one more time and let you know why it is, why United Airlines, why we all feel so proud and privileged to work here. We embrace diversity. We value that very much. And so one of the ways that we like to engage our employees in our diversity efforts is through our BRGs, which is business resource groups. We have several of them ranging from multicultural to LGBT. We have a veterans group, we have a women's group, we have a young generation professionals group, as well as our latest one, people with disabilities. But it's just a way to engage our employees and encourage them to join these efforts and be involved in how we can create an inclusive environment for everyone. We have employee social clubs. So if you, I'm sorry, let me go back a slide. We have employee social clubs that if you like running or skiing or biking or diving, we have a club for just about everything that you can imagine. And it's just ways that United family members like to enjoy doing the things we enjoy and doing it together as a family. And we have a partnership with Special Olympics. And so we get together, it's pretty crazy, but we get together and do polar plunges. And it's especially chilling and exciting when there's ice in the lake here in Chicago. So it's just a way that we like having fun together. We have some competitions between our hubs when it comes to a plane pool. Yes, we actually have a championship where we pool a 737 for 10 feet, and it is a timed event, and it is a very competitive event as well. We also have some soccer tournaments that end up being pretty competitive as well. And I know Beeb mentioned earlier, but one of the things that is especially gratifying to be involved in is our fantasy flights that we do each year around the holidays. So that's a little bit about why United. So really there's 5 easy steps for you to get to United through Aviate. And that is once you meet your eligibility requirements, apply to Aviate, you go through the selection process, and then from there, you'll just work on building your hours. Once you build enough hours, you will fly with one of our United Express partners up until the time that you are ready to transition to United as a first officer. I would be a little bit remiss if I didn't talk to you just a little bit about what that interview day would look like. So if selected for an interview, we will fly you to Chicago. We are actually located, our corporate headquarters, we call them Corporate Support Center. We are located at Willis Tower. Most Chicago locals will always refer to it as Sears Tower, but we occupy 18 floors in that building. We are the largest tenant. We are unique in having one of the best floors in the building. We're on the 97th floor. So we will invite you to come in. You'll enjoy some beautiful views. Not only that, but you will meet a team of professionals that will demonstrate what we mean by Core 4. We are committed to making sure that we create a safe environment so that you feel comfortable throughout your interview. We are caring in the way that we want to get to know you. And we will commit to providing you with a dependable experience by making sure that you have the materials and the communication that you need before you get there and show you an efficient process. So with that, I would like to encourage you to, if you haven't done so, to please go into unitedaviate.com and check out our website. I know that you have probably already received a link to a survey, and we'd like to invite you to please go in and take that survey. We'd like to hear your feedback on how we can continue to engage with you. Additionally, in a couple of weeks, we are going to be rolling out opportunities for students to sign up for some one-on-one time with our Aviate recruiters, and we will be rolling that out pretty shortly here as well. We also have interview prep sessions that we do from time to time, and so we will be sending out information to when we resume those as well. So thank you so much for your time. We encourage you to go into that website and check out how to captain your career, and we really look forward to meeting you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Kerry. Hi, everyone. My name's Finn Hudson. I'm one of the Aviate pilot recruiters, also based in the Willis Tower. So Kerry and I work together, and we really are a small team at the moment, but we're really looking forward to seeing more people come through our doors. We've just got to start rolling with the interviews before this situation happens, so I'd love to see you there. I know there's a lot of questions here, so I want to start addressing some of those. If you have a question, feel free to type it through now. I'm going to go through some of these, and if anyone wants to answer these, just jump in. So there's a question here. Previously, United had a program with the Lufthansa training school in Arizona where CFIs went to United, bypassing a regional. Will this type of option be available through Aviate? Kerry?
This time I'm going to unmute. We are looking at other ways to expand the program. Right now, we are just really focusing on our partner schools, our universities, as well as our professional flight training schools and our United Express partners.
Cool. Thanks. So there's another question from Cole here. Does United look at the college you attend to help in the decision process? Kerry, that might be another one for you as well.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? It cut out just a little bit.
Sure. So Cole wants to know if United looks at the college that you attend to help in the decision-making process. He doesn't specify if that's an Aviate or traditional. So there may be a kind of a split answer there, depending on which one you're looking at.
You know, one of the things that we look at, obviously, you know, we encourage you to work really hard and study and keep your grades up, because what we do look at is we look at the grade point average. One of the requirements is a 3.0 grade point average. So it's more about that. And, you know, we also look at some of the things that you volunteer. I know that's been mentioned with some of our pilots here on this call, but we look at the other activities that you get involved in as well, as far as volunteerism and networking and mentoring and stuff like that. So it's not so much about the school, but how you perform there and what your grades look like.
Thanks, Gary. And just to add on to that, obviously the only time the school comes into factor is if you're applying to Aviate, because the benefit of being a UND student is that you're one of the very few schools that are actually in partnership with the Aviate program. So I think maybe your question, Cole, was maybe outside of Aviate. Obviously, if you're applying through Aviate, then you must have gone to one of the partner schools. There's another question here, which I think we answered, but I'll read it really quickly. Are flight benefits still a part of Aviate benefits package before starting at our chosen Aviate partner airline? It's a bit wordy. Basically, do we get benefits at some point if we're in Aviate before we start at the UAX carrier? The answer will be yes, eventually. Like Kerry mentioned briefly, we are still working through that one, and they'll definitely announce that soon. We're very excited to announce it when it's been finalised. Mike, I've got a question for you. I think Jordan is asking, how is the relationship with United and GoJet?
Well, right now, GoJet has just started to fly the 550s for us. So that's a relatively new product within the last year. They currently are not in the Aviate program, so they're not one of our partner regionals.
Thanks, Mike. This question is definitely open. I'm going to ask Michael to answer this first, just because he's the one who brought it up. Anyone else, if you want to jump in here, but we've got, what type of volunteer work would you recommend?
You know, the volunteer work question is a great one, and we get it a lot at our in-person meetings, is what should I volunteer in? And the answer to that is whatever interests you. We absolutely do not want to see volunteer work that is just to fill a box on a resume or to check a box on an application. When you come to us and we meet you in person on campus or for your interview, we want to see that passion. We want to see what you're about, what motivates you, what drives you inside and outside of aviation.
Thanks, Michael. And I'm going to add to that as well. If anyone else feels like jumping in, feel free to as well. But as one of the people who does the interviews, you know, Michael said it perfectly. We really want to get to know you a little bit more When we do the panel interview portion of your interview day, that's really just a chance for us to spend an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to get to know who you are, because it's very easy to look on a bit of paper and say, okay, this person did this, this, and this volunteer work. If it's on there, we're probably going to ask you about it. So be prepared to talk about it. If you're not passionate about it and you were just doing it to, like Michael kind of mentioned, just to go on the resume, it's probably going to come through when we ask you to talk about it and you're not really recalling much of the information, or you don't seem too passionate. So don't go and do something that you don't want to do. Find something that you're passionate about, because when I ask you about it in the interview, that's going to come through, and that's what we want to see. We want to see who you are on the inside. So thanks for that question. That was a good one. We've got another one here. Loving the presentation. Well, thank you for a start, Cody. Delta's Propel program, they have certain windows of time where you can apply and submit an application. Is United planning to do the same with Aviate, or is it going to be open indefinitely? Kerry, would you like to answer that one?
Yes, I would. And you know what, Finn, I apologize. My audio is bleeping in and out. Could you repeat the question one more time?
Sure, it's probably me. Cody just asked if United is planning to do the same as Delta's Propel program, where they have application windows, but you can apply and submit your application within a certain window. Cody's question is, are we planning to do the same thing?
Okay. No, we do not have any plans to do that.
Thanks, Kerry.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another one here. Connor, are there considerations for Aviate applicants who have a parent or family member currently at United? Kerry, do you want to take that one as well?
Yeah, sure. We do look at referrals, employee referrals. But again, I'm going to go back to it's great when we have folks that are here and their family members want to apply. Again, it's going to come across in your interview, though. Although we take that input and we appreciate it, it's also it's kind of on you to come in and show us your best self in your interview and show us that you are the person that is excited about working at United and that you are working towards being in a United cockpit.
Cool, thanks. We've got another one here. Are there any options on going into the military through the Aviate program?
Do you want me to take that, Finn?
Sure.
There has been some conversation about that. It is something that they are looking at, but it's not anything that is on a priority right now to work on. Right now, the folks coming through military are actually coming through our traditional path.
Thanks. I've got this one. There's a question, as long as you meet requirements, will you be given a spot in Aviate, or is there a set amount of slots per year? That's kind of like the Delta question, where you've only got a limited window or amount of slots that you give away. And the easy answer to that is no. If you interview and you are successful in that interview, then you'll become a participant in Aviate, and there is no limit to those slots. There's another question here. I am currently still enrolled at UND while flight instructing as well. When applying for the Aviate program, should I apply under Aviate Partner University or under Building Flight Hours tab? Kerry, do you want to take that one?
I don't really think that it matters which entry point, provided that you have the criteria to enter at that point.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a question here. This might be for one of our pilots in the group, Mike or Jim, if you want to take this. It says, do you think facial hair is acceptable at United as long as it is trimmed properly? Maybe I can see you guys laughing. Maybe you guys want to talk about this question a little bit.
I'll tell you when I'm old enough to grow some. I got my my baby looks. I don't really get a good beard, so I'm not really an expert at that. I don't believe our grooming standards allow that just yet, but the world is changing and it always does. So if you look great in a beard, good on you.
Well, thanks, Jim. The next question is, what will the seniority structure of Aviate be? Will it be based on a college graduation date or based on program entry? So that's a really good question. This delves into a little bit more of the program specifics. The long and short answer is the FIFO list is something you need to get familiar with. FIFO is yet another acronym for you to get familiar with, along with the other thousands that you have to learn as a pilot. It stands for first in, first out. So the first in, first out list basically means what it says. The sooner you get onto that list, the sooner you get off it. And the mentality being that that's kind of like your Aviate seniority number. It's not to be confused with pilot seniority or company seniority for your United term, but within Aviate, this will determine when you are eligible to come over to United. So what happens is that you get a FIFO based on your border of review date. When you come to the interview, you'll have the full interview day. After that, you'll usually find out within about a week and a half and receive an answer. The reason being our board of review meets every week, once every week, to basically go through all of the applications and candidates and the interview results, and then they make that decision from there. And usually within a day or two of that decision being made at the board of review, you'll get an answer, and that date of the board of review is your FIFO date. So that's the long and short answer. Again, this one can be a little bit tricky, and maybe hopefully my answer was clear, but certainly something that we can talk more about on campus when we get back out there, or in those one-on-one chats if you don't understand that one. There is a question here, and I'm not sure about this one, so if anyone knows the answer, Kerry or Beeb or anyone else, Nolan wants to know if there are any opportunities for internships for this upcoming summer. If so, who would be the best person to contact for inquiries?
Beeb, can you take that one, Beeb?
I do have that one. Nolan, unfortunately, with the impact of COVID-19, we have decided to forego our summer internship program, as the timing for interviews would be right now as we speak. So in lieu of summer internships, our hope is to reinvigorate the internship program for the fall semester.
Thanks, Beeb.
I hope that answers it.
Perfect. Let's see. So there's a question here. This is a kind of a double question. The first part is, when will the application window be open? Again, it's already open. You're able to apply right now. You can go on tonight and start looking at that. The second part of the question is, additionally, would a freshman with their private currently in their second semester be eligible? I definitely encourage anyone here on this presentation this evening, if you are interested in Aviate, to first go on the website, unitedaviate.com. It's got all of the eligibility requirements listed there, depending on what entry point you are going through. So there's a question earlier, should I go through the university entry point or the CFI experience build entry point? It just depends. So make sure you read up on the eligibility requirements. For this person specifically, if you have completed 30 credit hours or 2 semesters, then that is the only additional requirement really on top of having your private. So it sounds like you may not have that completed just yet. When you get to that 30 credit hours or the end of your second semester, then you'll be eligible to apply. Kerry, I've got another question for you here. Is the Aviate program non-commitment? Is there a commitment with the Aviate program?
Yes, so there are, along your journey, we are going to engage with you, as I was talking about your pilot coach. You would be expected to, not only as you are going through and you're building your hours and your time and all of that, but checking in with your coaches and taking advantage of the opportunities that we give you throughout this time. The other thing is, if you're entering through the university point, or you are really at any point that you enter Aviate, just making sure that you are in good standing with the codes of conduct and everything at your particular school, and that your training records look good. So it's just kind of paying attention to those things throughout and making sure that you're taking advantage of the opportunities that we give you.
Cool. Thanks, Gary. I might have another one for Mike here, or Beeb. Is there a possibility of other regionals being added to Aviate, for example, SkyWest, Republic, GoJet, etc.?
I think we're always looking to expand the Aviate footprint and the sphere of influence, if you will. And I know, Mike, we all have some similar wants and asks. So for the time being, we'll have our partners as published, but always kind of on the hunt to grow this particular piece as well. I don't know, Mike, if you have any additional comments.
No, just the priority, at least on the initial rollout, was we tried to focus on regionals that flew exclusively for United, but as Beeb said, we're always looking at the landscape of our partner airlines.
So we've got a question for the pilot specifically. Someone addressed our pilot group here. What type of technical skills and experiences are important for us to master in our training at UND?
I can answer that one if you'd like. I think that the training at UND is fantastic, and you're going to be trained to talk on the radio and fly the airplane and fly an ILS approach, and all of those things are very important. And you're all going to come out of UND probably close to the same. But what I think that you should do is hone your skills on being an ambassador, to UND while you're there, being an ambassador to the United Express while you're there. And when you get to United Airlines, being that pilot that makes that great ILS approach, lands the airplane as smoothly as you can, and then comes out of the cockpit door and greets your passengers with a smile and says, thanks for your service. And that's what's going to be very important. That is a skill I would hone, and too many people don't do that. So technical skills, probably going to take care of themselves. And if you complete your training, and they're going to be great at it, but no one tells you how to go and talk to somebody. That's a very difficult thing to do at times. But I think that if you become that ambassador, you're gonna make a United Airlines a great place to work, and you're gonna make people want to come and fly with us.
Thanks, Jim. That's a great answer. We've got another one here, which I think is interesting. Jesse asked, as someone who is not very familiar with United or their operations, hearing about the vast number of activities United hosts and offers is amazing. What can students who are having to delay their graduation times due to COVID-19 expect? If accepted into the United Aviate program, is there leniency towards situations like this? Beeb or Mike, do you maybe want to take that?
Yes, we've had to revisit. We could not have even imagined some of the impact to COVID-19 on the airline industry, a global economy, let alone our Aviate program. So yes, we're in discussions with our ALPA partners on how do we accommodate those pilots that have been displaced either from their flight training environment or their experience build to provide best opportunity to continue with their engagement with Aviate. So stand by for some updates on that, but we're going to be very liberal because we want to ensure that our Aviate partners are not harmed any more than COVID-19 has already done.
Right, and that was one of the focuses from the ALPA standpoint is we understand pilots are kind of along for the ride sometimes as the industry goes up and down. So the FIFO concept was there to make sure that you were safe in the FIFO list, regardless of what happens to your individual regional or what happens to your career path. As long as you stay in the ecosystem there for Aviate, you should be fine.
Thanks, Mike. That's a good perspective as well. So I've got two kind of easy Aviate application questions. The first one is the Aviate interview, the final interview for United. Yes, it is. That's the easy answer. If you apply to Aviate and you're successful, that's it. So that's definitely one of the big bonuses of the program. The next one is, can you apply to Aviate multiple times? I'm assuming this is kind of going to be assuming if the first interview isn't successful, are you able to reapply? And the answer is yes. This depends on what entry point you're going through. If you go through, for example, the UAX entry point, this is really the last step before you get to United. So unfortunately, UAX entry point participants or applicants do not get a second interview within Aviate. You're still able to apply through the traditional pathway at that point. But if you are applying at the early stage at the university entry point, like most of you will be, then there is a second opportunity if you are unsuccessful in that first interview after you have completed 500 hours of extra flight time. There's one here from Riley. It says, for the panel interview in terms of technical knowledge, should we prepare for it like an ATP level interview, or should we prepare for a knowledge level that a private pilot would be familiar with? I can definitely answer that, and if anyone else wants to input here, feel free to, but it's a really easy answer. We definitely looked at the Aviate program and said we can't give the same interview that we'd give to a 2,000-hour UAX pilot to a 200-hour private or commercial pilot. So what we did is we created a structured and tiered interview process. The first tier is if you are a private pilot, between private and your commercial. So this is kind of like tier 1. You'll do this interview. It's going to be very similar to kind of the level of knowledge that you have to pass your FAA check ride. So think of your FAA written test that you did, the oral knowledge examination that you did as part of your flight test. We're not going to be asking you advanced aerodynamic questions, turbine systems, that kind of thing. The same goes for commercial. If you have your commercial certificate and after that, then you'll get a scaled interview that is reflective of the commercial knowledge expectations as per the FAA syllabus. Does anyone else want to add anything to that? Oh, cool. Let's see, we answered the multiple question. Like the beard question, this is another good one for the pilots. Like the beard question, facial hair, in case you can't understand what I'm saying, what about tattoos? Are there regulations or are they just not allowed at all? I'm just going to open it up and anyone can jump in there on that one.
I think we had a recent flight ops manual update that said no visible tattoos while in uniform on duty. I don't assume you'd be on uniform out of duty, but just no visible tattoos. However, understand the cultural norms have changed somewhat over my career path, but yes, there's no stigma associated with tattoos.
Although you might want to rethink that face or neck tattoo.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I think we've got a couple of repeats here, but there is a question here which is kind of loops into what we were talking about experience building. It says, if we are already in the program, is there any benefit to taking a management position at the university? Will the management experience outweigh the delay in time building? I'm going to hand that off to Kerry or Beeb, and you can answer that one.
Beeb, I'm going to hand that one off to you.
So there are some particulars as it relates to management pilot flying and hours required. It's pretty granular, so I would direct you to the Aviate program guide to look specifically. It does give credit for the efforts as a management pilot, knowing that your time is spent supporting other pilots, sometimes more so than accumulating your flying time. So there's a outlined plan to address that. So it's hopes to be a neutral impact to your flying time as you serve as a management pilot full time.
Thanks, Babe. This might be a question for the pilot group. Mike, Ryan wants to know, are there any securities for someone flying for a regional that has issues or shutdowns? For example, someone who is flying for Transtates.
If you're in the Aviate program and you're in the FIFO list, you make every effort to re-enter the Aviate ecosystem, you will be fine. You won't lose your spot in the FIFO list. That was the, again, that was one of ALPA's priorities because I mean, I came from the regional world, so I understand that that's not always up under your control. Your airline's only around as the latest fee for departure agreement with the mainline airline. So we wanted to make sure the pilots that once they got into the Aviate program, something beyond their control affected their flow, that they would have an opportunity to stay in the FIFO list and re-engage or re-enter the ecosystem somewhere with one of our partner carriers.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. And I might have another one for you here. This is for the UCPP participants. Will our FIFO date start from the day we received our offer, April 2019?
The UCC, the old program people should have been are on top of the list before the people that are now entering the Aviate program.
Thanks. And we've just got one last question here. Sorry if we missed yours. There is a lot of repeats and there's a lot of questions to get through. I just want to reiterate what Kerry said at the end there. Please keep in touch with us and keep an eye out on communications from the university team. We're certainly looking at creative ways to engage and communicate with you during this difficult time. We're really aware of how difficult that can be. So we're working on some things, and in the next couple of weeks, as Kerry mentioned, we're looking at opening up some one-on-one virtual chats, some AV chats. So I'd love to see you on there and we can get into these one-on-one questions and get into a little bit more detail on these. But the last one here, it just says, is it recommended to apply upon reaching minimum qualifications, or would it be better to wait until having more experience? For example, if you just have your private, should you and your commercial then apply to be more competitive? Anyone else can feel free to add on to what I'm about to say, but the really simple answer, and I don't mean to hand it back to you, is it's really up to you. As I mentioned before, we do have a tiered structure for the interview process. So whatever entry point you're going into and whatever experience level you're at, it's scaled so that it should be fair based on your experience level. That doesn't mean that you have to go in as soon as you get your private. Although think about it, if you've just done a check ride, all of that information and those memory items and all of that knowledge is still there fresh in your mind. What happens after 50 or 100 hours of flying when you start thinking about the commercial stuff? You're going to start, forgetting all of that as you start to load up on information for the next step. So really is down to your own personal preference. We want everyone to be successful, ideally. So make sure that you're ready when you come to the interview.
And Finn, if I can just add on to that too, when you're invited in for an interview, we do send you an interview prep guide that will give you a lot of the information to kind of prepare you for what to expect out of the interview. Some things about the panel, the HR panel interview. We will send you information. There's call out exercises that will give you information on that for your technical review. So you'll get a packet to help you prepare for this, and take the time to review that packet and to get yourself ready. And then also, as we make interview prep sessions available, making sure that you attend those as well.
Thanks, Kerry, and thank you very much to everyone. I would like to say a special thank you to our entire team who showed up here this evening to talk to you. This has been great. We would have loved to have been out on campus and seen you there. But rest assured, we'll be back as soon as it's safe to travel again. Again, just please reach out if you have any questions, and thanks for attending.